Good morning, good evening, namaste, hola, bonjour, and maraban. This is Namya Joshi, your host for the day. Welcome to episode 35 of the podcast Each One Teach 10, an amazing world of STEM. An inspiring venture, we will be discussing that STEM is part of every day for every kid. We all will learn together how to build a STEM culture. Well, for today, my guest is Ms Kecia McDonald, an educator, mother, and traveler. She loves and works in Hawaii in USA, and she believes in the power of global education to build connection, understanding, empathy, and compassion, which leads to a better world. So, how are you doing today, Ms Kecia?
I'm fine, Namya. How are you?
I'm good too. I'm glad that you're here today and interacting with me and our guests.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so grateful to Evan Schwartz who introduced us through some of his work with Beluga. And I remember being in a room with you and just being so
Yes.
impressed with all of your projects. And I also have to say, I love your Each One Teach 10 because when I was a girl your age growing up, we had advertisements on TV for Each One Teach One. And so I love the fact that you've taken it and you've amplified it and made it more powerful. And you say each one can teach 10. So I love that.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kecia. So, moving ahead, we would love to know more about you and the work that you're doing.
I am currently a district area resource teacher serving English learners or multilingual learners. I am actually certified K to 12 health. So I used to be a health teacher in middle school, and teaching is probably my eighth career. It's not something I've done my whole life. So I have at various times owned a bed and breakfast. I have owned a nursery where we sold plants. I have worked in the schools in the music department. And of course, my number one role is being a mom, and that's always been very important to me. So, and the other thing I said, I'm a traveler. I've moved 26 times. So I've lived in the United States, I've lived in Japan, I've lived in Africa. I now live in Hawaii, and I'm not quite done. So my traveling has definitely shaped my view on life and education as well.
Wow, that's inspiring, and I really love that you love to travel because that's the way I am too. I just love to travel like whenever I can during the vacations. And like my favorite spot is going to the mountains because like I just love to see how the beauty of the mountains is and how like I think every time the snow just captures me, and like that's why I just love to travel a lot to the mountains.
Oh, that sounds so beautiful. I'm sure where you are, it's just gorgeous.
Thank you. So, moving ahead, like I want to ask you that how important are equity and inclusion for teaching and learning?
Yeah, these are words we hear all the time, right? Equity and inclusion, diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI. And I think they sometimes can become just words, but for me, they really are everything. It is absolutely the foundation of all education, the way that we find to honor and dignify everybody as a human being and what they have to offer. Like you said in your introduction, we all learn together, we all learn from each other. So for me, you could have the most beautiful written lesson and resources and wonderful programs, but if people don't have access to them, it doesn't matter how good it is. And so for me, the equity piece and the inclusion piece means that everybody will have access to that and that everybody will be included in that learning. So I think that's very much in line with your philosophy too.
Right. I really love that you're saying that their foundation of education as like teaching for inclusion signifies the how we are embracing difference in people and how we are including everybody. And then when we're teaching for equity, I guess we're allowing the differences to transform the way we think, teaching and learning, and then like we're handling every experience with fairness and justice. So that's how like they just become interlinked to each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're sisters in thought in that one. And again, everyone has strengths and everyone has, I know I've heard you say everyone has a story to share, and when we put equity and inclusion at the center of all we do, it really values everybody and all of their contributions. So,
Right, I agree with that.
yeah.
Right, so my next question to you is that how can educators equip themselves with skills for inclusion?
Luckily, this is almost really easy. It's sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easy. We all know with the internet, we have access to online materials, we have books, we have webinars, we have our PLNs, our professional learning communities. We can reach out to people and, we can do this. And so there's lots of ways, lots of pathways, lots of access to learning more about equity and inclusion. But I think the biggest thing is it starts with you. It starts with yourself. You look in the mirror, you examine yourself, you challenge first your own ideas, your own assumptions, right? And you see how are you either furthering kind of the system that may be inequitable, or are you working to fight against that and to fight for equity? So that's hard, but it's also easy because you can start with yourself. So for me, that's how the easiest inroad for teachers is to start with themselves and then slowly kind of connect and reach out to all those other wonderful materials, webinars, books, podcasts. There's so much out there that they can access once I think they have a grip on who they are, what they believe in, and what they're ready to fight for.
That's really inspiring the way you're talking about how we can include educators to come up for learning the skills of inclusion and like how we can reach out to people. Like this code is very much known by everybody that everything starts from home. So first of all, you start from yourself. You take it to your home, be inclusive to people in your house, and then when you're ready, you take it to the world.
And I think I just want to give you a quick example of, we can challenge our ideas. So one thing that I work with when I'm working with multilingual learners is this idea of absolute right and absolute wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about using translanguaging, right? Where every asset, every language asset that a person has is valid and worthy and valuable. And so when we talk about translanguaging, like let's say I'm going to speak in Afrikaans here. I learned Afrikaans when I lived in South Africa. Let's say I was talking to you and you'd say, "Are you happy to be here?" And I would say, "Ek is baie happy to be here." Right? So I use two different languages. So now you, instead of saying, "No, that's wrong, you have to only speak in English," you could say, "Oh, that's great. I'm glad you answered and that you're comfortable speaking, a different language with me and that, you got what I was saying. I was able to communicate with you. The point wasn't whether I was right or wrong." Right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think
Right.
we need to choose to connect before we correct, because as we build our relationships, those steps to language and understanding and all those other pieces will come into place. But
Right.
so I would say, educators can challenge their own ideas about like absolute rights and absolute wrongs in order to find a place for everybody.
Right. I really find that so inspiring that first of all connect and then correct. So it's really important when we're collaborating with each other to be kind towards people and then be inclusive and have equity in us, like not being partial to anybody as well. So like that's really kind of us to first of all connect with them and then correct. But I think I really find this really interesting and as like a really inspiring thing that you just told me right now. And I'll keep that in mind forever. Right.
And your country especially, right? Because there's so many languages and dialects,
Mhm.
and it's important to not make some people feel like they're outside of it if they don't use 100% of the right way, as long as they're communicating their ideas and they're sharing,
Yeah.
and it just creates a pathway of connection, even if it's not 100% perfect all the time.
Right. That's why we have like a national language Hindi. Even if we are bound with different languages of each state, we do have one single language of Hindi. And that makes us easier to communicate with each other. Otherwise, we do like try to use translators and like we're always welcome to any language. And that's what makes us strong together.
Nice.
Right. So I do want to ask you that I would love to hear you about the connection of art and social emotional learning together.
Well, you know me, I'm a big fan, a proponent of social emotional learning and the importance of it. And again, through my job with English learners, multilingual learners, I've really learned the importance of visuals, for one thing, to support people when maybe, it's another way of communicating, maybe when the words or the language isn't 100% in place, and people can use art. People can use visuals, first of all, to explain or describe something. Or sometimes in the classroom, you don't really understand something until you get your hands on it and you actually do it. And I know for you, you have created so many worlds of Minecraft, which is just a way of people, kind of immersing themselves in understanding. And so for me, whether that's academic content or social emotional learning, it feeds the soul and it helps with those inclusion and equity pieces. And the more art that we can bring to our both our academic learning or to express our feelings, the more important it is to include everybody, and the more we're going to hit that target of being equitable and inclusive.
Right. That's really amazing. That I totally agree with the point that visuals are important because sometimes I always felt since the beginning I started Minecraft was texture is just becoming so repetitive. And like visuals, not in a way that we're just learning through visuals, but I guess the art of the visuals is that, as you said about feelings, I think children can process their emotions and then basically express their emotions to like using visuals. Like that's how I felt with visuals, and I agree with you in every point.
The other thing about art, so now this is for me who's more of a logical brain person. When I'm doing art projects, I actually get very challenged and I get very frustrated. So it gives me good practice to kind of self regulate and to practice, like getting outside of my comfort zone and kind of stretching myself. So I think it's both ways. It supports people who maybe don't access those like harder intellectual academic tasks as easily. And it kind of challenges the people who do to try something new and push outside their comfort zone. And then,
Right.
as you say, that improves my social and emotional learning because I have to learn how to be successful in a different way.
I agree though so much with that. So I just have a fun question for you. What do you love to do on weekends?
Well, I'm very lucky because I live here in Hawaii and we have beautiful beaches and we also have beautiful coral reefs. And so I love snorkeling. I love seeing life under the sea. And right now it's whale season. The humpback whales migrate through our area. They come here to have their babies. And when you're snorkeling underwater, you can hear the whales singing. And sometimes you can look and
Wow.
see them breaching. And so I am a big fan of being near the water. Like you love your mountains. I love the water. I love the smell. I love the sound. I love seeing all the beautiful sea life that lives under the sea and
Wow,
just
that's so great.
having an awareness of all the beauty and all the color that you don't see when you just see the top of the ocean. I like looking underneath as well.
That's so great. And one day I would love to see what is under the ocean because I've seen some in Discovery channels talking about what the sea life is like. So someday probably I could go under the ocean and see how basically it feels like to be under the sea and experiencing all the colds and all.
Yeah. Well, I hope you get to do that. I'm sure you will. You still have a very long life ahead.
Thank you. So, do you love to experiment digital tools and learn how to inspire creativity in every student using STEM and game based learning?
I do. I love experimenting. I love providing choices as well, for different students to feel successful in different ways and to use whatever way is most comfortable for them and works well for them. I also have a little bit of a caveat on that sometimes too much choice can also be a little confusing. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic when we were all switching to, online learning and technical learning, technology enhanced learning. There were almost too many choices for me, and it was hard to select a few. Oh, there's Padlet and Wakelet and Flipgrid, and it was, sometimes it's hard to choose. So I would recommend maybe getting really grounded and comfortable in a couple good ones first, and then maybe slowly experimenting because there's such a wide range of amazing things. And like I said, I love everyone playing to their own strengths. I love the way, again, we were talking about multiple languages, how technology can assist with translation, technology can assist with embedding visuals to support understanding. There's so much amazingness that's out there with the use of the different apps and the different sites and the different applications. But it can also almost be overwhelming sometimes. So I think it's good to pick a few and get really strong in those and then maybe start experimenting more and branching out more.
Right. It's very important to get constrained towards certain things, not just like getting everything at the same time. And that's what I believe in, like going step by step. Like even if you have 50 and 100 applications that you love and are going well for the topic that you want to do, but if you just have one of them that is the best, so we should go for that. And then we can start adding more and more. So I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, there's more coming out all the time, and I see something new and I think that's wonderful. But then sometimes it's hard to find the time to learn a new one and master it
Mhm.
in order to
Right.
share it. So
Yep.
it's a good balance.
Right. But sometimes we don't even have an option. Like then we can come out of the comfort zone and then learn that application. And in the same way, we're just making it easier for the students as well to learn. And for us also, we're learning a new skill that is required, like to keep on learning forever.
And sometimes the students teach me better than I can teach them how to use a new one. So that's also fun sometimes.
Right. I agree with that. So how do we build and maintain attitude of gratitude?
I love this question. I know we talk a lot about, you can be too positive or people talk about toxic positivity, but I really do believe that staying grounded in gratitude is kind of like we said how equity and inclusion is the foundation to education. It really for me is the foundation to well-being and peace and connection to the world. Because as they say, there is always, 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 always something to be grateful for. And even on the worst day, you still often will have it better maybe than somebody else if you have a roof over your head and some food and a family that loves you. And I think it is so important to look at what we have versus what we don't have. And, as much as we love technology, I know with social media, sometimes people will look at other accounts or see other people and they'll feel less than, right? Oh, I'm not doing as much as that person is. I'm not as successful, or, my podcast doesn't sound as professional as theirs, or whatever. But I just feel like if you're focusing on what you don't have or what's lacking, you're not going to build your own strength. And so for me, that attitude of gratitude is start with what you have and be grateful for what you have. And that's how you actually get that foundation to move forward and to do more and learn more and be more. Because if you're always focused on what is going wrong, you won't get to the parts of what can go right if you just put in, a little more effort. So
I really, really love that. That we should not just focus on what we don't have, but focus more on what we have, because like things have a positive and negative like effect on each and everything. So if we focus more on the positive thing, I think we can get more successful, rather than just focusing on like I don't have this, I can do that, I'm not that successful. So if you could think like I did this today, I made a person smile, I did something that could bring a change in society. So I think that is what we could make ourselves a better person. And like about gratitude, like I've started doing this since many years now. I've kept a gratitude journal, and like every day at the night when I'm supposed to sleep, I just write whatever I did in the entire day, and I thank God like for whatever I could do and spend time with my family, make some projects, have some good food outside in the restaurant, and in this way I could like express my gratitude towards God and like be happy on small things. And then in the same way, like I'm able to meditate with gratitude. So like that's what I wanted to share with you.
very nice. The other thing that for me to maintain an attitude of gratitude is also kind of based on your like each one teach 10 is to like think about how you can help others. um, there's a nice YouTube on the science of happiness, and they've proven that when you are even feeling a little bit down yourself, if you take the time to reach out and help another person, you know, not only do they get the benefit of it because they feel better because somebody helped them, but you also get the benefit of it. And you feel better and happier and more grateful because of reaching out, extending, and helping another person. And so I would also say, in addition to being grateful for what you have, if you can think of maybe, like you were saying, shares one thing with somebody else or help out one other person, that is also one of the best ways I know to maintain an adequate attitude of gratitude and to lead to a happier life.
Right. So, where can we find you online so that our audience can connect with you?
Well, I am on Twitter. I know that's where you and I connect a lot. And my Twitter handle is at McDonald underscore Kecia, like my name. I am on Instagram. It's a little more of my personal life. I take a lot of pictures of sunsets. It's not like my professional realm, but if anyone is interested in Hawaii, my handle is actually called What High Sea. So it's at what underscore Hi, like HI, because that's the abbreviation for Hawaii, and then CSEE. So instead of what I see, it's what Hi see, because I see it in Hawaii. So if anyone wants to find me on Instagram, they can do that there. So those are two of the best places to find me.
I really like the Instagram handle. It's pretty creative.
Thanks. I just had my name and then I was a teacher and a lot of my students were finding me. So I thought, let me get a little more creative with my name because it also is a little more reflective of my account. And then maybe I won't be as obvious as well.
Right. I'm gonna surely add that in the description box on Anchor and YouTube so everybody here watching us can check it out.
Yep.
Great. So my last question to you is that is there any message that you would like to give to the audience hearing you live today?
I think the biggest thing and is just to keep learning, like we were saying, keep challenging yourself, like we talked about with inclusion and equity, look at yourself first and keep challenging yourself. Um, like I said, I wasn't always a teacher. I only became a teacher a couple years ago. And when I became a teacher, it really challenged me to learn more all the time, and it's made me a better person. I just have really enjoyed it. It's expanded my mind. It's kept me fresh, and so learning, and again learning from whether you're 50 like me or 13 like you can learn something from everybody, and everybody has something to teach, and everybody has something to learn. So I would challenge everybody to keep doing that. And also, as we started, keep traveling because I think the more you see of the world, your perspective changes. You can understand others, you can empathize, you can have compassion. And I think that's so important, even more so every year as we go on in our world, as we deal with conflicts, as we deal with issues, as we try to come together for global warming or, the SDGs. We really need that perspective and that empathy and that understanding. So for me, travel is one of the best ways. It's immersive learning. You're learning by going, putting yourself in that situation. You learn a lot very quickly. Like they say, the classroom goes beyond the four walls. So I'm a big fan of traveling being one of life's greatest teachers.
Right. Just keep learning, keep challenging, and keep traveling. Life
Absolutely.
wonder. Right. So before we end, I just have this quote that I really love about equity inclusion. So that is diversity is a fact, equity is a choice, inclusion is an action, and belonging is an outcome. And that basically sums up the entire episode that how equity you make a choice and then you make an action of inclusion and then belonging is an outcome.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And I agree. Again, with COVID, people were saying, I'm reading books and I'm learning and I'm taking the time. But as we know, that doesn't translate into change until we take those actions, until you connect, you reach out, you change someone's worldview a little bit, have a little shakeup. And then that's how we create that belonging for a better world. Absolutely.
Right, thank you. So, thank you so much, Ms Kecia. It was lovely talking to you today. And I really learned a lot, and I'm sure my audience did too. So, thank you so much for giving this opportunity to me to learn from you and coming on our podcast today.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot too. And I know that you and I will keep learning from each other as we go through.
Right, thank you so much. So, thank you everyone for joining and listening to us today. I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, each one, teach 10. Have a nice day.